things over to Thomas Helwine for our inspirational messages this morning. Thomas.
Good morning. Well, there's a lot of different thoughts that I had over the week about giving the inspiration, and three of them kind of meld together, which could be a speech for somebody in the future. We all see movies where when you time travel, what's the first rule? Don't change anything because it could ruin things, right? But then at the same time, right now, every day, we believe that whatever we do, we can't change the world or make our lives better. Those two ideas don't work together at all. And then the inspiration thought hit me that I saw online and many times, and it brought those two ideas together. Helping one person might not change the world, but it will change the world for that one person. And with that, over to you, back to you for the pledge.
Thank you, Thomas. Greatly appreciate it. I'll ask everybody to mute and we'll do our pledge.
Mute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Happy Thursday. I'm happy to see all your lovely smiling faces this morning. Margot has an announcement, and I'll say on behalf of her that the Star Show is this Saturday. And Steve, what time are you guys starting the Star Show?
Not now.
Okay, well, we're shooting for about 8:30. The sun will just be getting around to setting, and if we get there before that, we can actually look at the sun through this scope. So,
Ooh.
here's some fun there. And we'll also have Mars and a beautifully slim crescent moon. And if the trees are low enough, we might catch a glimpse of Mercury and Venus.
Beautiful.
That will be low in the west. And the usual assortment of fun things to look at.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Steve. Are there any other announcements from the floor? All right. Well, I'll turn things over to our Toastmaster today, Dr. Muhkles Rahman. Take it away, Muhkles.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining our early morning weekly meetings. And I am pleased to announce we have a guest, Chris Duckloper. Can you say your name, Chris?
Glopper. That's my maiden name. So
Banks, you're a cousin of the Kate Banks, right?
Actually,
I
Chris
am
is-
her aunt.
And okay.
Chris is our newest member, actually.
Great. Yeah. Oh, congratulations. So you're no more a guest, you're a member. Sorry, that's my mistake. Well, I'm delighted to host this meeting as your Toastmaster. First thought came to my mind, the world is changing so fast. How many of you remember when Three Stooges went to the moon? There used to be a Three Stooges movies. I don't know if any of you saw how many saw the Three Stooges? Cartoon, was that movies, right? Hollywood movies? So few, I'm surprised. But anyways, that dates me where I come from. The world of tomorrow was first envisioned in my area would have been the Jetsons. I don't know if you saw the Jetsons cartoons. And then, of course, the Epcot, Experimental Pavilion of the Community of Tomorrow. That was Disney's dream. And my background shows basically one of the depiction of the urban cities of the future. And many of them today exist, actually. He did that in 1960, so it would have been 60 years ago. And then, of course, the Star Trek Voyager, which would be the future. We don't know if it's going to be 100 years or 3,000 years. So that's how the theme of tomorrow, world of tomorrow, but it could be just tomorrow, the Friday. It could be 50 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years. With that introduction, I'm going to go ahead and introduce some of the roles. And the first and the most important role of our meeting, which actually shares the bulk of the meeting, is General Evaluator, Mr. Len Thornton. Could you tell us about your role? And even if you want to, you can introduce all the role takers, because you will also ask for the report. Are you there, Len?
Good morning, Dr. Muhkles. Yes, this is the most important role of the meeting. The meeting literally cannot happen without the general evaluator. And thank you for calling on me so early. I will defer your request to introduce all of the job holders this morning, but I will call for reports at the end. How's that? Is that a good trade-off there?
Excellent.
And of course, my role is to evaluate the meeting in general, the evaluator, or I'm sorry, the Toastmaster in particular, and the three evaluators to critique how well they did in evaluating the speakers. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. So when I joined Toastmasters, I thought the three roles were most critical. One was, of course, General Evaluator, who used to call on all the evaluators before the meeting so that they were all prepared to give a very productive feedback. The purpose of coming to Toastmasters is improvement. And if you don't get improvement opportunities, why would I invest my 1, 2, 3 hours? Because you have to drive sometime 20 miles, like I used to do from Niagara Falls. So evaluation is one of the most critical, because that's the reason many of us come back again and again and again. That's why I use it as an important tool. As far as the role holders goes, I started with the General Evaluator. My next would be, of course, Word of the Day. Word of the Day. Carol, can you give us the word of the day and explain your role, please?
Yes. The word of the day is manifest or manifested. It can be used as an adjective, which is clear or obvious to the eyes. A verb was display or show a quality or feeling by one's acts or appearance, and a noun, which means a list of passengers or goods being carried on a commercial vehicle. And a couple sentences. The point seems manifest to me. It may not be apparent to everyone. His name was on the manifest, and at an early age, he manifested a preference for the study of math. So it's manifest, and of course, it has to be used by our table topics.
Thank you, Carol. I hope the world of tomorrow is a manifest for us to think of what's coming ahead, especially beyond the pandemic that we are all going through. To hope for the best and still be prepared with everything we are going through. My next role is our counter. Tom Moran, please explain.
Yes, good morning, boys and girls. This morning, I will put on my listening ears and be listening for all the ahs, ums, and pregnant pauses that may occur during today's meeting. And then when called upon at the end of the meeting by the general evaluator, I will give my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, we should clap or wave. So we are not in a physical meeting, but you can give energy by your hand. Thank you. My next is Grammarian Catherine Orr. Go ahead, Catherine, give us your role.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I will be listening for all strong grammar. Please give us good vocabulary today, folks. Drop all those G's, etc. Thank you very much. We will manifest a wonderful meeting together, Mr.
Thank
Toast.
you. Thank you. Thank you. And our next is, of course, our esteemed, one of the founders of the club, none other than David Licata as a codemaster. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mr.
More hands,
Toastmaster.
please.
Are we ready? We all set? Okay.
Yes.
Men, my brothers, men, the workers, ever reaping something new, that which have done but an earnest of the things that they shall do. For I dipped into the future, far as the human eye could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonders that would be. Tennyson. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we just lost Muhkles. So we can continue with our jester, which is Jim Wilkerson. Jim, do you have a jest for us?
Yes, good morning. Did you hear about the two tugboat captains that were friends for years? They would always cry, "Aye," whenever their boats would pass each other. A new crewman asked why do they say that all the time when they pass? He said, "Did you ever hear an eye for an eye?" I have another one. There once was a young man who in his youth professed his desire to become a great writer. When asked to define great, he said, "I want to write stuff that the whole world will read, stuff that people will read on a truly emotional level, stuff that will make them scream, cry, howl in pain and anger." He now works for Microsoft writing error messages. I have one more. A man rushed to the doctor and shouted, "Doctor, I think I'm shrinking." The doctor responded, "Now settle down. You just have to be a little patient." Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jim, and I see Muhkles is back. Muhkles, we welcome you back, and you can take over now. And you're on mute, Muhkles.
I'm sorry, my audio system has been giving me trouble for last week. I don't know what's the fix, but we'll suffer through it. And if I do lose, I hope. Can you unmute yourself? Tell us how you found us out and where you are from. Guest Josh.
Hi, everyone. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I'm here in Qatar.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Yes, so I'm a Toastmaster, and I have just been attending meetings online, and I love it. So I would love to, see how you conduct your meetings and learn from the best. Thank you.
Where are you now?
Thank you.
I'm in Qatar.
Okay.
Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. And after the Toastmaster and General Evaluator, one of the key role of Toastmasters is our timer. And today our timer is Distinguished Toastmaster Larry McKenzie. Larry, go ahead, explain your role, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This morning, I have the distinct pleasure of timing everyone's speeches. Everything in Toastmasters is timed. And today, table topics in our AM Lockport group. If you are chosen or if you volunteer for table topics, 1.5, 1:45, and then again at 2 minutes. So you have to speak for at least 1.5 minutes. Speakers, you're going to be speaking for 5 to 7 minutes typically, unless you give me a different time frame. And also for our evaluations, it's between 2 and 3 minutes. The lights you will see are these. It'll be a green light at the first part of your time, either at the 1.5 or the 2 minute for the evaluator or the 5 minute for the speakers. Then this is your warning light, which is the yellow. And when you see the red light, it means zip it, because my manifest may have you looking like you went over time, and we wouldn't want that to happen. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. I will report when I am called upon.
Thank you so much, Larry, our esteemed timekeeper. Our next role is Tech and Gesture Master, and that is David Jones. Thank you for signing up, David. Go ahead, explain your role, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am the Tech and Gesture Master. I'll be watching our technology, and we're not off to a good start, but we're making it work. And be looking for body language, facial gestures, and I will be keeping a manifest to report at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. Let's give him energy again. Everybody, let's be active. I know our Zoom system is giving us a lot of trouble, but we try to make the best we can. That's at least our goal. And soon to be hybrid meetings. So we'll have both chance of physical applause as well as waving the hand or clap, whatever you prefer. The next role holder is my own son, Samir Rahman. Go ahead and explain your role, please, Samir.
So today I'm the quiz master. I will be listening attentively to all of the speeches and table topics and devising a quiz based on the content for everyone to test their listening skills at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Samir. So let's listen, and at the end, when he asks for quizzes, everybody please unmute and then answer as loud as you can. Again, I want to get a lot of energy into the meeting, even in our restricted internet mode. That comes to our first section of the meeting. So we have 3 sections, as most of you are Toastmasters, you would know. We have the impromptu speaking table topics, then the prepared speeches, and what is the third section? One of the most important section is the evaluation portion of the meeting. So now we're going to launch into the first part, and I will request Mike to both explain his role as well as lead us to the table topics. You have a choice of 3 speakers, please. We do have 3 table topic speakers because we do have 3 speeches. Thank you, Mike. Let's welcome Mike with energy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. Table topics is a great way to improve your extemporaneous speaking, which is off the cuff. Today, our club mandates that you use the word of the day along with making time. Table topics is, I think, one of the most important parts of our weekly Toastmaster meeting. So I was excited when I saw the theme for today. Tomorrowland is a great idea because a lot of what technology sprung from the ideas of science fiction from the earlier days in the 40s and 50s. And I will start this morning. I will ask our newest member, Chris Banks, what piece of technology that was part of science fiction that you saw as a kid that you wish that you would hope we would have today? Chris Banks.
Good morning, and I appreciate the question. I would have to think on that. I know I am more suited towards fantasy ideas. Science fiction, always thought that those communicators, especially from Star Trek, they would flip it open and they would talk, and someone from another ship would be able to hear them. But, and I'm using all those words that I'm not supposed to, I see that we can use those things right now in our own houses. Even telephones would be considered those kinds of communication. And actually, that leads me to another thought, again, from Star Trek, is I don't remember what they called it, but being able to go from one place to another. Beam me up, Scotty. You can go from physically, they would dismantle you, you would go somewhere, and then you would show up and be put together in another place. That, I think, would be fabulous, especially for those of us who have family members out of town. And it would make traveling so much easier, although a little scarier, because what happens if you do not reappear, or half of you does? So I would say that would be my ideal choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And my next question will be for Mike Florio. Mike, welcome back. It's good to see you. I know Tomorrowland used to be a theme park ride, and I think it still is at Disneyland out in California. What was your favorite theme park to visit as a kid? Do you have fond memories of theme parks, and etc.? Mike Florio.
Thanks, Michael. And it's great to be back. And that's a great question, because my favorite is probably Universal. And we went there, we went to Universal a long time ago, and we went to go see the Terminator. And you could sit there, and it was basically the first 3D movie that I had ever sat through. And it was really amazing to watch it. There were all these other, there was Jaws, where you could go through the ride. There was Earthquake, but my favorite one was the Terminator, because it brought you into the future. And I remember my son was obsessed with the Terminator. I think he watched it probably 200 times, and it brought you into the future, and it was kind of a scary future, Tomorrowland. All right. It wasn't exactly what everybody thought it would be. It was something a little bit scarier, and it made you think, if you were a little bit on the paranoid side, that maybe we're not headed in the right direction. And sometimes we look at what's going on these days now, and a lot of people wonder if we are headed in the right direction with the way the government is kind of on top of us and controlling what we do. Now, maybe that'll all pass after the pandemic kind of calms down a little bit. We'll see what that manifests into, but right for now, that was my favorite, and probably always will be. Thank you, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. And finally, I will ask our guest, Josh, this morning. I want to thank you for volunteering. Now, it's interesting, always interesting and great to get a different perspective from somebody that is outside of the US and outside of Western New York. Josh, my question to you would be, what technology do you hope gets advanced in the future soon? Do you have any long-term hopes for advancement in tomorrow? Our guest, Josh.
I'm afraid I will have you to repeat the question, please.
Sure. sorry, it's kind of a winding question. I just want to see, what hopes do you have for technology in the future? Our theme's kind of Tomorrowland, and we usually try to ask the question in response to the Toastmasters theme. So I just was wondering what technology you hope to have in the immediate future or the long-term future.
Communication is very important in our lives, and we know how powerful this internet, computer, smartphone is. And this is something that I would like to see advance even more. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. I'm here in Qatar, and my family is in the Philippines. I have friends all over the world. And given the situation right now, wherein we cannot travel, the most important technology we have right now, or at least I have, is my smartphone. To be able to connect with them, to be able to know what's happening with my family and with my friends. And even with what we're doing right now in Toastmasters, we thrive because of technology, of this internet, of the Zoom. So I think it is very important that we see how this technology can advance even more so that we can connect deeper, even better with our loved ones, so that we can influence, we can inspire people. As a Toastmaster and as a teacher by profession, connection is one of my values. I love sharing my stories because I believe that that is the simplest yet the greatest way to connect and contribute to something beyond ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one technology that I would like to see advance even further, that is our internet, smartphone, or the computer. Because especially with what's happening right now, we need something like this to connect and to thrive. Over to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Josh. And now I will call upon our word master, Carol. Carol, how did our word do this morning?
Well, actually, Mike used it. I really did not hear Chris or Josh use it, but I think maybe we could give them a break because Josh is a guest. And Chris, this is kind of her first time, which is very intimidating. So I say we could qualify them all.
Josh did use the word.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
But
And now
Chris,
over
give
to
Chris a break.
and to our timer, Larry. How did we do on time this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. This morning, our speakers did quite well. Checking my manifest, I have Chris at 1 minute and 46 seconds, Mike Florio, 1 minute and 57 seconds, and Josh at 2 minutes and 6 seconds. All three qualify. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Larry, for your manifest. And now I will turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, who can make the decision on whom to vote for. Muhkles.
Let's give a hand to Mike Licata. I think he did an excellent job on the theme and calling on the members and guests. This is again a wonderful example of one of the best clubs in the world. And now you got the voting in, so go ahead, vote for your favorite table topic speaker, please. Okay, so I hope everybody has voted in. Is that correct, President or Larry or Tech Master? Everybody has voted? Okay, thank you, Larry. Larry is our super tech master and backup technology support. Okay. So now we slowly move to the next portion of the meeting, which is the prepared speeches. Before that, I want to mention one. I'm a book reader. I'm a fan of libraries. What book comes to your mind when you think of the future? Of course, there is the books on Star Trek. There is books on robotics, iRobot from, what's the name of the author of iRobot?
Asimov.
What's the name? Asimov. Yeah, Isaac Asimov. Thank you. But the one book that really impressed me a lot, I just came to this country new, was called The Future Shock. How many of you have read or heard about the book called Future Shock? Please raise your hand.
Elvin Toffler.
Okay, so I think there are very few futuristic people interested in the future of in the writing or the books. That book had predicted a lot of future communities. In fact, one of the ones that impressed me the most was he envisioned in his book this whole communication, which all the three table topic speakers mentioned, also about connected communities. I think one feature was Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and Toronto will become one community. They will have commuting trains at the speed of 200 miles per hour or 300 miles per hour. So people can live in any of those corridors and work in any of the places in this corridor, because they will take you 20 minutes to 30 minutes to commute from one place to the other. So that was very interesting, because Western New York was considered one of those future corridors of communities with high-speed rail. Sorry if I am digesting too much, but let's get back to our main entree. I am delighted to report that three speeches are really, really to the theme and very interesting. And to introduce our first speaker would be our own president, Eric Snyder. Go ahead and introduce your speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This morning, I am happy to evaluate Beth Banks. She's speaking the level 2 of pathways in the presentation mastery section. And her purpose of this project is to deliver a speech with awareness of intentional or unintentional body language, as well as to learn, practice, and refine how she used nonverbal communication when delivering a speech. Mr. Timer, her time is 5 to 7 minutes. And Mr. Toastmaster, do you have her title?
Go ahead, give the title. Let's hear if you have it.
All right, I'd be happy to. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, please join me in welcoming Beth Banks, the Jewels of New York, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Please help me welcome Beth Banks. Beth, you're on mute.
All right, there we go. Can you hear me? Thank you, Len. I was just going to ask, can you hear me? Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. The Jewels of New York, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. In my opinion, the Finger Lakes area in our state has something for everyone who enjoys the outdoors, history, and alcohol consumption. There we go. The most well-known are probably Canandaigua, Keuka, and Seneca. However, looking at the map, I think an argument could be made that Casanova, Onondaga, and Oneida are similar enough to the rest to be part of the region. My family and I have enjoyed staying at quite a variety of accommodations on the lakes, including private homes, campgrounds, B&Bs, motels, resorts, and even a spa hotel. We have stayed for many years at the quaint Showboat Motel and several different cottages on Seneca Lake. Two romantic places my husband and I have stayed at are Belhurst Castle in Geneva and Marabou Inn and Spa in Skaneateles. My childhood memories of the area may not inspire you to visit, but I do love the Finger Lakes in spite of my family quirks. We would visit my dad's first cousin Betty and her family on Keuka Lake. After camping at several different locations, my brothers and I decided my father must have an ability to be a rainmaker, because no matter when we went to the Finger Lakes, it rained. The worst probably was the time that it poured. We were in a tent trailer, and overnight, the heater in the tent trailer went, spewing black smoke everywhere. I don't really think my cousin Betty appreciated all of us showing up on her doorstep, asking to use her shower to wipe that black all away. At times, we have believed that I inherited that rainmaking ability from my father, as we have watched many storms come across the lakes through the years. That's okay with me. I love storms. I'll never forget the time my Uncle Bill took me on my first roller coaster ride at Roseland Park on the shore of Canandaigua. For the entire time, I was hiding my face in Bill's arm. Sadly, that roller coaster is now gone. If you're looking to find out more about history, there are several places to go, including the Women's Rights National Historic Park in Seneca Falls. For transportation fans, there is the Glenn H. Curtis Aviation Museum in Hammondsport. If you're looking for a beautiful but slightly eerie spot, go to the Garrett Memorial Chapel on the bluff at Keuka Lake. If you can get past the ghostly atmosphere, it is a breathtaking wedding spot. As a family, we have spent many hours hiking on the trails throughout the region. Both state and town parks are lovely trails, quite a variety. My husband, grandchildren, and I have enjoyed the kid-friendly trails. As you can see, they like to pick the wildflowers. Other trails are not for the faint of heart. Watkins Glen is a particular respite from the heat during the summer, as most of the trail stays quite cool. Of course, let's not forget the alcohol industry. The climate and soil in the region has become known as perfect for the growing of grapes, with hundreds of wineries, breweries, cideries, and distilleries surrounding the lakes. There is really something for a wide variety of palates. Why not consider visiting the Finger Lakes of New York for your future vacations? We're all ready for that. Salance. Cheers to our trips of tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests for agreeing to be on my manifest for our trip today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beth, for a wonderful exploration of Western New York and best places that you inspired us, except maybe a little bit less alcohol. Alcohol-related problems are maybe too many. That's my humble opinion. Our next speaker is Jennifer Zappala. She signed up on the spot of second speaker. I'm so grateful to her. So we have a full slate. And to welcome Jennifer, we have Dr. Gerald Stevens to introduce, as well as we welcome the speaker to the speech. Thank you, Dr. Gerald Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. It's my pleasure today to evaluate Jen, veteran Toastmaster. Great job stepping up. It's always great to see people do that for sure, fill in the roles. I thought I was not going to be on the manifest for today's meeting because I didn't have anybody to evaluate, but oh, that did not happen, and that's okay. It'll be fun. So what Jen is going to talk about today is a speech from our Pathway series. Everyday Exploration is going to be her title, and the speech length is 2 to 3 minutes and a 5 to 10 minute podcast. So that's different and fun. Her goals are to be well organized, engaging, and to show off her Toastmaster presentation skills. Mr. Toastmaster.
Good morning,
Let's
everyone.
welcome- Sorry, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Did you know that there are more planets out there than there are stars? I have this on authority from a guy from NASA. Steve is shaking his head no, but I have it direct from NASA. There are more planets out there than stars. In fact, for every star you see, you should expect that there is at least one planet. Now, why is this so interesting? Because when you look outside at night, you see a lot more stars than you do planets. You can really only see a few planets. Now, the interesting part about that is here on Earth is really where the magic happens. But think about it. People far away, they can't see the Earth. They can only see that star, our star, the sun, as a representation of us. And I think for anyone who's a writer, a blogger, a podcaster, or even just your Facebook profile in general, that thing that people see of you is the star, but it's not where all the work is. It's not where everything goes into it. So this topic of podcasting, it was interesting to me, and I thought I would give it a shot since it's on the list for pathways. It never occurred to me before to try podcasting. And now you may think that the actual important part of podcasting is developing content and preparing to speak and doing all of these things. Now, yes, those parts are important, but they mean nothing if you don't do the work. So to get started with podcasting, I reached out to a friend and said, hey, how do you do this? A friend that I knew podcasted. And he gave me a suggestion. He said, well, first you need a platform. I recommended this one. Now, it was a good thing I reached out to him because maybe in another time in life, I would have researched which platform to use, but I didn't even know I needed a platform to podcast. So I took his suggestion, partially because it was the first one I had ever heard of, and I found a platform and I did the work. I interviewed someone, and it took me quite a while, lots of things to work through, Googling and forums and issues and bugs, but I did it. I submitted a podcast. So today I am going to share that podcast with you, fellow Toastmasters. Can you see, actually, hold on. I'm going to stop sharing and share again and make sure that I have checked the share sound button. Uh-oh. Maybe this is not going to work. Okay, hold on. Can you see my screen? And can you hear my podcast? We'll just give it a minute to come
Hello,
up.
podcast listeners. Welcome to Everyday Explorations, where we explore, well, whatever's on my mind. I'm your host, Jen Zappala. So what is on my mind today? Career, passion, purpose. In today's episode, we will be interviewing my good friend, Calvin, diving into his mind and mindset to see how these are connected for him. Calvin is an author, blogger, podcaster, motivational speaker, and certified life coach. He helps people to master their mindset so they can master their lives. If you're interested in learning more about Calvin, check out his website, intenselypositive.com. Welcome, Calvin. We're going to do a podcast today. It's my very first podcast ever.
Oh, I feel so special.
Because you are so special. You should feel special even if it wasn't. And today we're going to be talking about your career, what you do, why you do it, mainly because it has been a struggle for me my whole life. And I think it's a struggle for a lot of people. People always tell you, like, find your passion, go with your passion. What better person to talk to about something like that than a life coach, by the way?
I think you're right on that. But I might have to correct one potential misconception that you have.
Okay.
And that is that I only do one thing.
Okay, and what's that?
Because I like doing a lot of things. I am a life coach, but I got a couple of other titles in there too.
All right.
You know, professional photographer, and, podcaster, and blog writer, blogger, all that stuff.
Well, that's even more exciting.
It is, but a lot of it is all around. Life coaching is somewhere I wanted to be for a really, 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 really long time, because I like helping people get out of their own way, especially if they ask me. I've been doing this now since probably 2012, and doing okay. I'm enjoying it. I continue to enjoy it over almost everything else I've done. I really, really love photography, but coaching was easier during the pandemic. Starting about high school, everybody always used to come to me for advice. People have always come to me for advice.
Like what kind of advice? Dating advice?
Any kind of advice. I mean, about all kinds of things. And some of it, I can talk about. Some of it, I can't. But, I had friends who had, emotional problems or just needed somebody to talk to. And as coaching goes, I'm a mindset coach. So my thing is, when you master your mindset, you master your life. So I help, basically, my goal is to help people feel better about life and themselves. And I've been doing this. I've been writing about this stuff since 2013. I blog on it. But everybody is always like, "Oh, you're so positive all the time." And then, yeah, I didn't used to be. There was a time I wasn't that guy, but I learned. And once I figured that stuff out, it's like, you know what? Positive people are a lot happier.
They are. Is that why you got into life coaching, or how you started to get into it? Did you just realize, like, I need to change my own attitude?
Well, I started reading some stuff way back. I'm not even sure how far back. The first book I ever read on and it wasn't really positive attitude was a book called Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And he was a psychologist, but he was a plastic surgeon. So I don't even know why I picked the book up, except that name was just so cool to say. But once I started looking at it, his thing was, he was a plastic surgeon. He spent all his life, doing plastic surgery for people so they would feel better, look better about what they were. And as he was doing that, he was noticing that, he might have fixed somebody's nose, or whatever, but for some reason, when that person looked in the mirror, they couldn't see that it was gone. They couldn't see the improvements.
Yeah.
And we went on that being, their self-image was that picture that they're seeing, and they weren't really seeing what was going on. So once we started looking at the self-image, after that book, I ended up with Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power, which is a most magnificent work. And that's really the book that probably made me want to be a coach specifically more than any other, because Tony Robbins was just so, and is still so dynamic and awesome. And I'm like, I want to do that.
So you
I want to
decide,
help people feel better.
you read these books and you're like, I want to do this thing, but how do you get from that point of saying, this is really interesting to me, like this is something I want to do, to actually doing it? Because it's not, I don't know what you were doing at that.
Okay, fellow Toastmasters. So you got to start hearing my podcast, but if you want to finish listening to it, you will have to subscribe. And you can do that either via iTunes, Google Podcasts, or you can go directly to the website, which I will share in the link. So if you're interested yourself in doing a podcast, there are a lot of things to get started. Content is only one of them. Of course, I hope to develop my podcast even more, post more episodes, and develop more content. So it's a little bit of a work in progress as we go, but I've gotten over my first hurdle. I've actually done it. I've edited it, maybe not that well, but it was an hour to start with, and I got it down to 25 minutes. So all of these things take work, but what you see is the star. So fellow Toastmasters, the next time you look out to the universe and you see all of those stars out there, now there are a few planets, maybe the people close to you, you see the work that they really put into it. Just remember that there are planets behind each of those stars. Thank you.
What a wonderful speech for the world of tomorrow. I love that. That was, again, to the theme and the new platforms of communication. I think it's convenient. You can broadcast this, pre-broadcast this, and listen to it at your convenience or watch it. So very well done, Jennifer. Again, you have impressed our club members with your slide presentation skill, which blew me away. And now this next technology step of podcasting. Thank you so much. Or maybe we should have a toast, because I might forget afterwards. So let's have a toast for the world of tomorrow. May it be brighter, happier, and more peaceful. Thank you. Okay, our next and final prepared speech is from our distinguished Toastmaster, Marty Johnson. I've known him for all 5 years, a dedicated, and of course his topic will speak even louder how dedicated he is. And to introduce him, Jill Roaring is the evaluator. Jill, you go ahead and introduce him, also launch him to the speech. Thank you. Go ahead, Jill.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day. Marty is working on planning and implementing. His purpose of the speech is to share some aspect of planning and implementing for his small-scale project. The time is 2 to 3 minutes, Mr. Timer. His title is Rounding them up for the cemetery spring cleanup. Marty Johnson, rounding them up for the cemetery spring cleanup.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. If you were to think of the initials KM, who is a past member of our club and a distinguished Toastmaster, who do you think I'm speaking of? KM, and it's a female
Christy
The
Miller.
last name, what is that?
Christy Miller.
Christy Miller, correct. Thank you. The reason I'm leading in with that is because I have the privilege to work with Christy's dad, Glenn Miller, who I'm going to say is the project manager, if you will, for this project, and I'm one of the planners and the person planning and implementing as Toastmaster. Is the project of cleaning up the debris at our St. Patrick's Cemetery on Glenwood Avenue in Lockport, New York. And the reason I chose Glenn, mainly because he's the direct point of contact and he's a cemetery director. And not only that, I felt that there's a lot of things I can learn from Glenn regarding planning and implementing, because Glenn owns and operates Miller Construction and a rental business. And I feel there's a lot I can learn from him. As I mentioned, what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be, a couple of the steps in the planning stage are first to get the bodies and the help. And what I'm going to do is get help from our parishioners, volunteer help, and also from my Knights of Columbus Council in Lockport, and the guys that are going to be helping from my fraternity. We're going to have these nice shirts with our logo on it, so we'll be visible, and it'll be manifest in the eyes of any passerbys that yes, we do care to beautify our cemetery for our deceased. As I mentioned, the main tasks that we're going to be doing is picking up brush. And as I spoke to Glenn, there's a lot of brush from the winter, from storms that have fallen. There's some overgrowth on a sidewalk that runs parallel to the cemetery on Glenwood Avenue that you can barely even see the sidewalk because it's totally covered with overgrowth. And clear a drain, and the back part of the cemetery, there's a drain from a natural spring that runs down the part of the driveway that needs to be cleared so it doesn't create a mess on Glenwood Avenue and in the cemetery. And today at noon, I'm privileged to actually have a meeting with Glenn to further plan and work on implementing this project. In general, as I said, it's going to be something that's going to be manifested in the eyes of any passerbys, how the cemetery will look a lot nicer when we're finished. And I look forward, and I'm excited to be working with Glenn on this. And when everything comes to fruition and I'm done, I'm going to be excited to give a speech on the results and my experience. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Marty. Again, an inspirational speech. I think those of us who love our community, we would love to contribute to various volunteer projects, including cleanups. So this is excellent, excellent encouragement. Okay, so now I have to call for 2 reports and then voting. My first report would be from the distinguished Word Master, Carol Halston.
During the meeting, if you do you want me to tell you all the members that used the word?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Of course, you had used it once. Kate used it. Mike used it, and also Mike and Josh speakers used it. Beth used it. Marty used it. Gerald and Larry used it a couple of times.
And Tom too, I heard Tom, so.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you so much, Carol. Great job of reporting. And my next one would be our distinguished timer, Larry McKenzie. Please give your report.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Today, checking my manifest in regards to our prepared speeches, Beth, 5 minutes and 53 seconds. Her speech was 5 to 7 minutes. Great timing. Beth. Next, we had Jen, who had a two-part speech. Her first portion was between 2 to 3 minutes. She spoke for 3 minutes and 28 seconds. And then the second portion was between 5 and 10 minutes. And that was for her podcast, 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Next, we had Marty, whose speech was between 2 to 3 minutes. Marty also spoke for 3 minutes and 28 seconds. All three have qualified, Mr. Toastmaster, and it's back to you.
Thank you so much. So now let's vote for the best speaker, please. So I hope everybody has voted. I'm fading in and out. I can see our internet systems is, if I disappear again, please forgive me. Next part of our meeting will be led by Len Thornton. So Len, you can take over
Thank you, Dr. Muhkles.
the evaluation portion of the meeting and then evaluate. Thank you.
Thank you. I think in light of your connection difficulties, that's probably a wise call. Let's move now into our evaluation portion of the meeting. And I'll introduce our first evaluator this morning. Evaluating best speech is our president, Eric. Take it away.
Mr. General Evaluator, thank you very much. Fellow Toastmasters and our guest, Josh, and especially to Beth. Beth, thank you so much for drawing us into your speech this morning about the jewels of New York. I think that New York is the crown jewel of the tourism industry, and I liked some of your PowerPoint presentations because the last one, the wine country, I especially enjoyed because, you know, everybody loves wine. I love wine. I'll drink anything wine. And for those who don't know, I'd never gotten drunk in my entire life, but it may be a first. So maybe I'll stock up on some wine. But you gave us some great stories about, you know, going to relatives' house and talking about the black smoke, and I'd be like jumping out the window if I ever saw that happening. So you gave us some good general background of your stories. Your PowerPoint presentation was really good as compared to me last week where I had a difficulty time with my PowerPoint presentation. You had it on, spot on, wonderful, and it was a joy to see great to see some of the technology that we all love to do. But you sound so like in theater, you're talking about this, you're talking about that. I like how you like immerse yourself into some form of theatrical performance, and I commend you for that. What I would like you to do to challenge yourself, you may want to work on for your future speeches. I kept noticing you kept looking at your notes a few times. I see you looking down, looking up. Maybe try to practice more without the notes. Maybe first read the notes first, then move it like aside. Don't look at them and look straight at the camera with PowerPoint and just continue without using notes to help you practice more, and maybe stand up too. And I think that would be more effective with more of your gestures, but the gestures was really good too today. And my favorite thing was you and Kate cleaning the wine glasses. That was fun to see. But Beth, wonderful job with your speech today, and I look forward to hearing many more speeches to come. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Eric. Let's move on now to our second evaluator this morning, evaluating Jen's speech, Dr. Gerald Stevens. Gerald.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My pleasure today to evaluate a veteran Toastmaster, Jen. As a veteran Toastmaster, she drew our attention in immediately with a fun fact from NASA. Authority, certainly, even though we had maybe some difference of opinion from our star show extraordinaire, Steve. It's okay. You have to go with the official reference, in my opinion. You guys can debate later for fun. She described how she got interested in doing a podcast. I've heard of podcasts myself. I've never actually listened to one until today. I've thought about doing it, but did not take the initiative to do so. So that's cool. So that's my first podcast sample. Appreciate that, Jen. She talked about how she did it, because maybe there's some other people out there that have an interest or just kind of dabbled on the sidelines like myself. Found a platform, did the work. That's the thing. That's where I didn't achieve. I didn't do the work to figure out where to go or listen to or any of that. So kudos to you for that. As an evaluator, I do have to give her a few minor improvements, certainly. There's minor technical glitch there. That's to be understood. We heard the sound. I didn't see a video myself. I don't know if there was a video. Not really. Okay, so it was just sound. So that's good, because I wasn't sure exactly. I saw the opening page. But me being a novice to the podcast, I just wondered that a little bit. There was a few ahs and so's, but that's to be understood as well, considering that she just put this together at the last minute, and that, certainly with a little more practice, she wouldn't have any of those. Other things she did well. She did a good interview, questions back and forth. I am sure she prepared for the interview. You have to prepare a few questions. I've done a few over the years, and usually you have a list of questions to ask to make it interesting and to make the flow better. So that went well, but also a little bit of flexibility mixed in, because if you have the questions and they have a good topic and they want to expand on that, you got to have time to do that. So I think she had that calculated in as well. The speaker himself talked about books that maybe would inspire others. And a positive topic is definitely something that I feel like most people are drawn to. So that's important for information and content, I think. She exposed herself a little bit because it is a work in progress. And sometimes people are not willing to show a work in progress. Definitely a lot of artists like that for sure. You can see over the years. Call to action at the end, love that too. And you even gave us a link to subscribe to the podcast. Kudos to taking initiative, Jen, and definitely theme appropriate. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stevens. And now on to our third evaluator this morning, evaluating Marty's speech, Jill Roaring. Jill.
Thank you, Len. I find this an interesting concept here. I have to do a 2 to 3 minute evaluation on a 2 to 3 minute speech. This will be interesting. Marty's project, I think it is the level 5 of his planning and implementing, rounding them up for the spring cemetery cleanup. It sounds like he is in the somewhat early stages of this, but he did bring us in right away with the initial thing and letting us remember Christy Miller, which connected us to her father. He talked about the need for the project, and he told us the location of it and some specific problems and areas of attention that were needed in this at the cemetery. The spring that overflows and causes problems with Glenwood Avenue. He had excellent interaction with the camera from what I could see. It was the start of the planning. He showed the t-shirt, but he dropped it down very quickly. He could have done a much more elaborate showing of this t-shirt. Maybe even having it on and then talking about the logo. That's one area I could see for improvement. Another area is technical. He had a very bright white background behind him. It kind of washed him out pretty bad. His project, by the sound of it, is in the early stages. He's meeting this afternoon with Glenn Miller about this. Hopefully his project continues and the cemetery gets the due respect that our elders deserve. And hopefully we will hear a wonderful speech about how it went in the end. Thank you, Len.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you to all of our evaluators. At this point, can we please have a timers report? Larry?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. On my manifest today, I have 3 of our evaluators who all qualified time-wise. Eric at 2 minutes and 39 seconds, Dr. Gerald at 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and Jill at 2 minutes and 28 seconds. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. The poll will be coming up momentarily.
Thank you very much, Larry. And now please take a moment to cast your ballot for the best evaluator today. And as that's wrapping up, I'm going to shake things up a little bit here before I do my evaluation of Dr. Muhkles and the evaluators. Let's go into our quiz master today, who is Samir. Samir, let's see how well we were paying attention. Take it away.
Sounds good. I have a manifest of a few questions for all of you. What was Mike Florio's favorite theme park?
Universal Studios.
Good job. What technology did our guest Josh primarily appreciate?
Smartphones. Phones.
Internet, smartphones.
Yep. Looks like y'all were paying attention. What happened whenever Beth Banks' family went on vacation?
It rained.
Rainy day for them. What did Jen not realize she needed for podcasting?
Platform.
Platform, yeah.
Yep.
Platform. Yeah.
Platform. Bonus
Podbean.
question. What platform did she pick?
Podbean.
Yep. And what group is Marty Johnson going to be representing on his shirts in his sanitary project?
Knights of Columbus.
Yep. Good job. And finally, another bonus one. What type of moon will manifest in the sky when stargazing this weekend at Margin?
Crescent moon.
Yep. Thank you, Len, and everyone for paying attention.
Thank you very much, Samir. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to go into our master, Tom, before I give my speech, thus eliminating any possibility of criticism on my ahs and ums. Take it away, Tom.
Mr. General Evaluator. Actually, I didn't catch any ahs or ums from you, Len. I just used one there briefly as an example of what I was looking for. Now, Muhkles, I didn't catch anything from you until later in the meeting, and it was after you had lost connection and came back. You had a that you used quite specifically. So Jim didn't have any. Josh had absolutely none. Chris had, when she was called upon in table topics, an and 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 I was wondering if the next one would be an because they kept going and and I thought that was it looked almost poetic, like I was writing a poem or something like that. It was very interesting. Mike Florio had an and an As I said, I believe Josh had nothing. Carol was fine until she was surprised to make her report for a wordmaster report after the speakers. And I think it caught her by surprise because she had an and an when she was giving that report. Jill had an Gerald had an Jen had one great big and it kind of surprised me because I never hear an from Jen. So it took me by surprise. Kelvin, however, Kelvin had an another an and then he did this really, really, really thing we talk about when we're giving our reports. Beth had a really long pause that was interesting to me, but it was what it was when she was switching over from her screen that was hers, and she was swapping sharing the screen. And I actually had a recommendation there that I would like to throw out, that there is up in the view section, up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen on my laptop, there's a view section, and there's an option called side by side. And I think if, like, when you set up, it would be like setting up a chart or something, or your visual, that you go in and set this up prior to when you begin speaking. What it does is it puts the shared screen in one section and then your picture in another section, and then it would go a little bit smoother, because that pause, we all run into that. So all in all, I think on my manifest there were a few things, but nothing that can't be corrected. So thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Tom. It's something we always need to keep in mind. Pauses and filler words, which distract from the content of our speech. Let's go into the evaluation of the meeting overall here. Muhkles did a wonderful job organizing this meeting. He started on Saturday. That was his first contact with us by email, to get people to confirm their roles, to note any missing roles and ask people to step up. I heard over the past week, I saw rather, a few more emails, and undoubtedly he reached out to people and filled that third speaking slot. When we arrived at the meeting this morning, every role was filled. There was no last minute scrambling. That's a sign of a very conscientious Toastmaster, and kudos to you for doing that. There was a little glitch, as Tom mentioned there, calling on the wordmaster after the speakers. Generally after the speakers, we just call on the timer to see who qualified and then going to the voting. So that did throw Carol off a little bit. What I like to do, and I've done pretty much religiously as I've been Toastmaster, is use an outline created by a former member called Toastmaster in a Box. And I'll post that in the chat in a few minutes here when I'm done speaking. It gives an outline for how the meeting progresses. Just a little reference there, because we all forget things. We're going back and forth. We're introducing all the different roles, the speakers, the evaluators, table topics, and trying to work in fodder related to the theme. So it's easy to get confused and to jump around. If you have this outline, you can kind of check the boxes as you're going through. So again, I'll post that. The next thing regarding timing, we're at 8:19 right now. We're going to finish probably about 5 minutes early. Not too bad. We could have used a little bit more fodder relating to the theme. Some more things to really make us think about the future, the world of tomorrow, and so on. And I generally try and introduce that during periods where we're voting, or where there's a natural pause in the flow of the meeting between the speakers. Maybe compile a little bit more of that. You don't have to use it all. Have it handy, prioritize it, and then work it in the flow of the meeting just to kind of fill the time. Now on to our evaluators. Our first one, Eric, evaluating Beth. Eric talked about the great job that Beth did with the tech. We could see her photos. They were large. It was a relatively smooth transition into the PowerPoint, and her theatric and her body language. He called her to work on both her eye contact and her notes. Maybe one other thing I could suggest is the pace as well. We never want to go too fast where it's tough to follow somebody when they're speaking, but a little bit faster cadence in your presentation might have pulled us in a little bit better. Okay, and possibly introducing particular photos. There were generally 4 on a slide in your presentation. Point out such and such as this one, this bottom left corner, and so on, if you could work that in. But he did a typical sandwich approach, finished on a positive, on a compliment. Eric, good job, as befitting the experienced Toastmaster you have become. Our next evaluator, Gerald, talking about Jen's speech, gave her kudos for the preparation. Minor tech glitch, barely noticeable in the transition to your browser and playing the sound there. I would have included a second area for improvement for Jen, being more descriptive of what type of podcast you were doing. There are video ones or vlogs as opposed to just audio podcasts. Maybe you would have mentioned which platform you found Podbean and why you picked that one. And most importantly, the subject of your podcast, the person you are interviewing, how you came to interview that person, what was the relevance of that for your very first endeavor here. But again, Gerald, you gave her kudos at the end. Great sandwich evaluation, call to action, and that she had posted the link. And again, a great job. Our third evaluator, Jill, commenting on Marty's speech this morning. She noted it was a different format. It was a shorter speech and gave him some areas for improvement, larger t-shirt showing, holding it up so that we can all see the graphic on there and pointing out the significance of that. And a little bit on his technical setup in the background, how that can be distracting sometimes to a speaker. Again, the sandwich approach, good evaluation. Great job on all parts there. Let's now go into our other job holders of the day. And next up, I will call on Kate as our grammarian. Kate, how was our grammar this morning?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Wonderful, thank you. I believe we had some standout vocabulary, not as much as usual. Thank you, Len, for rounding off with strong vocabulary. I will list some of our strengths today: thrive, transition, envision, cadence, corridors, fodder, kudos, novice, glitch, theatrics, fruition, endeavor. I didn't hear too much weak language, except Tom Moran already pointed out we had quite a few ahs and ums throughout the day. Let's tighten that up. Maybe it was a softball kind of a morning, a sleepy morning. It's hard to say. I thought our word of the day was excellent. Manifest, great choice by Carol. Thank you for that. Although it was not used correctly frequently. Look at that word, folks, and how it's used, and I think you'll get it better. I'll message a couple of you on the side with some suggestions for improvement. Other than that, thank you for a wonderful meeting. Now I'll switch into my VP of Education role for a brief announcement, a couple of brief announcements. I do agree with the Toastmaster in a Box tool suggestion. I believe it is also linked on our website. If it's not, we can make sure that it is. As you're a Toastmaster running a meeting, follow that. Next week's Toastmaster, she put in the chat, is Tracy, and it looks like her theme will be something about summertime and venues opening up again. So check your email for updates about that. Also check your email. I sent an email out yesterday about meeting in person again. I'll be the chair of the committee for that. And we have folks who are interested already and gave suggestions. So please let me know. We're also going to plan our new member inductions. Our new member inductions will be with Jim and Mike and Chris, and we'll set that up on a day that all three of them can be there be at our meeting in the coming weeks. And anything else, please let me know. We're going to be updating you on awards soon too, because we have quite a lot of awards our members have been earning. So thank you everyone for your participation. And back to you, Len.
Thank you very much, Kate. And now on to our technical / gesture master today. David, take it away.
Thank you, Lynn. A lot of the items on my manifest, which Kate might indicate is the wrong usage of it, have already been touched upon by others. So I'm just going to skip across a lot of them off. But we're starting obviously with the Toastmaster had some internet connections, but what I liked best about that was the president and others stepping in to keep the meeting flowing properly. Currently at my club in Charlotte, we are doing hybrid, and our biggest thing is the internet connection, which is great because as a Toastmaster in real life, there's always technical problems when you're giving speeches. So it's good that we have these technical problems and we're able to overcome them instead of worrying about the speeches. One of the things I was looking for, and I was really happy, was the word or the phrase, "you're on mute." We only used it twice today, so that's good. We're learning how to unmute things. That's a positive. Tracy's not here anymore, but she had an open window. We really couldn't see her face very much. The Banks family had a hard time getting started. Maybe they didn't have coffee early, but both of them seemed to not be able to give their things. I noticed that 4 of us have ear pods in: Larry, Dave, Doctor, and myself. As far as the body gestures go, I always like to hit the speaker view to see what everybody's doing. Obviously, our guest Josh was very good. He used a lot of hand gestures. In fact, most people now are using a lot of good hand gestures because we know we can't do them down here. We have to do them up here. A lot of great hand gestures. Facial expressions. If you didn't zoom in, you would have not seen that Jen and Beth both had great facial features and hand gestures. They were doing really good. Jen inspired me. My next speech is the 15 to 20 minute podcast. And now I have an outline of how to do it. And finally, being a role keeper makes you pay attention more and attention to detail. I never knew that Samir was our Toastmaster's son. I learned that out today. Back to you, Lynn.
Thank you very much, David. A great manifest of all the technical challenges we face in this new medium. I would add one additional one to our Toastmaster today. Dr. Muhkles, I had trouble listening to you most of the time when you did have a good internet connection. The sound was somewhat lacking. And that's something we really can't tell unless somebody tells us. People told me at one point that my microphone just wasn't up to snuff and I sounded somewhat garbled. So rather than using the one on my webcam, I just dug out of my box of parts a small little microphone that plugs into a port on my PC. If that's an option for you, they're pretty inexpensive, and I think it bumps up the sound quality just a little bit more. And it's important that we be heard, but it's also important that we be heard clearly in everything that we do. And with that, I believe all my reports are finished. Carol, did we hear any more use of the word manifest after that you were called upon with the speakers?
Yes, we did hear a couple. I know Larry McKenzie used it the most.
Good job, Larry. And I thankfully I was able to sneak one in at the end there as well. And with that, I will turn things back over to our Toastmaster of the day, Muhkles.
Thank you. Let's give a big hand to Len for doing an extraordinary job as a general evaluator. As I said earlier, it's one of the most important role for a Toastmasters meeting is to the ability to do improvement. Again, we don't have to apologize, but to acknowledge that we do have technical challenges through our computer and internet services and equipment. So it's always an issue. I did order, actually, somebody gifted me these, but I still have to learn how to use them. So it's a challenge. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Eric. Please go ahead and take over the meeting. Thank you so much, everybody, for a great job.
Wonderful. Thank you, Muhkles. Did we do Quizmaster yet? Or was that? I had to step away. Yeah. All right. Want to make sure we covered all bases. All right, since we're running short on time, it's 8:30. I would like to call on our guests for some feedback of our meeting. So I'll take it over to Josh. And Josh, how did you like our meeting today?
I really enjoyed your meeting. First of all, I noticed that there's a lot of members showing up in your meetings. I've attended meetings online, and in other clubs, there's just like 5, 10. So good job on having like a lot of members showing up. Number 2 is in terms of the quality. I love the quality of the speakers, the role players, and the evaluators. I definitely learned from this meeting and how you professionally conducted it. But most importantly, I love the friendliness of your club, and I think that's an important element in a Toastmasters club, so that your guests will come again and hopefully become members. So keep it up and all the best.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Josh. Please come back anytime. You're always welcome to come back. And Karen Stewart, who came in during the meeting. Karen, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Not this week, but next week, I will be Toastmaster in my club, Rhetorical Roar, and the theme will be tea time. Or totally tea, we're calling it, because of International Tea Day. I did not know that there is such a thing as Toastmaster in a box. So I'll be looking into that. I have, on a separate note, I have put myself into Evaluator school. I have realized that for me personally, the most challenging speaking role in Toastmasters is that of Evaluator. And I count it a privilege that I joined in time to hear all 3 evaluations. I have so much to learn about it, and I appreciate the chance to see a few of them this morning. One more thing. I have you all to thank for helping me become more of a morning person again. This is week 3 of waking up earlier and sending my 10-year-old back to 4th grade 5 days a week. So I miss seeing you on a occasional basis, but I want you to know that I'm waking up early and ready for action and have discovered once again how valuable the first part of the morning is. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Karen. And anybody who would like to visit Rhetorical Roar is tomorrow at noon. All right, let's go to our winners. This is 8:35. Please help me in congratulating our best table topic speaker today, Josh. Josh is our best table topics winner today. Congratulations.
Thank
our
you.
Best, you're welcome. Our best evaluator today is Dr. Gerald Stevens. Congratulations to Dr. Stevens. And our best speaker for today is Beth Banks. Congratulations to Beth. All right, are there any quick final announcements before I adjourn the meeting? All right. Yes, Sylvia, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I was on PayPal and there was money in there, $147. Did anyone pay additional to their membership? And I just can't get a list of who paid all this money, or whom, more than one person, definitely. if you can send me an email who it is, that would help me to kind of reconcile that. But I'm thinking it might be the two ladies from Canada might have done something. I don't know. I don't have any indication that any new members besides Christine. So if anyone knows if they paid additional onto their membership, please let me know.
In PayPal, they're in the activity, you can see who the sender was. For
All right,
anything.
I'll look again. I searched around for a good hour yesterday, but I'll try again. Thanks.
All right, thank you all. All right, please stick around for Post Toasties. And guests are more than welcome to stay for Post Toasties. And our social hour is tonight at 7 p.m. And yes, Dave, I'm trying to turn to me. Hold on. And thank you all so much. Have a wonderful Thursday and a great weekend. Thank you all so much.